Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Douglas Ducote Show live. You had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. Before we kick off tonight's show, just want to let you all know that I will be going in to see a surgeon tomorrow, and depending on whether or not I end up going into surgery tomorrow or Thursday, depends on whether or not I'm doing my show on Thursday night. So I will keep you all posted how that goes. And we will move forward from there. So in tonight's top story, we're going to talk about a Supreme Court ruling that just went down that is very much so pissed off Joe Biden and his Department of Justice and his liberal cronies, because in this case, the justices, well, most of them got it right. At least it was enough to overrule the ones that were stuck on stupid. And we're also going to talk a lot tonight about your gun rights and a particular assault on gun ownership that's about to go down. And it's up to each of us to reach out to our representatives to let them know that this is absolutely BS. And we will talk about that here shortly. But first, a divided U.S. Supreme Court has allowed Texas to start arresting and deporting people who have entered the country illegally, refusing to block a new law that the Biden administration says will be unprecedented intrusion on federal power to set immigration policy. But you see, that's the problem, Biden administration, is you don't enforce the federal law, which is why the states have to go to the Supreme Court to get approval to protect their own sovereignty. Seems like common sense would prevail at some point in this administration for something. And as we see, it never does. They just continue stuck on stupid and doing dumb things that affect we, the people. Over 3 dissents, the justices today rejected the administration's request to keep the Texas law on hold while a legal fight goes forward at a lower court. 2 pivotal justices left open the possibility the administration could renew its request in the coming weeks. That's Justices Sonia Sotomayor, Elaine Kagan, and Keisha Brown Jackson dissent. The court gives the green light to a law that will upend the longstanding federal-state balance of power and sow chaos, Sotomayor wrote for herself and Jackson. That statement just proves how outrageously stupid you girls are. And, furthermore, by making a statement like that, you shouldn't be allowed to be a judge anywhere, much less the Supreme Court. The rebut is a blow to President Joe Biden's administration on an issue that has defended or defined the 2024 presidential election campaign. Polls show voters give Biden poor numbers for his handling of the border, making immigration one of the top liabilities heading into a likely rematch with former President Donald J. Trump. White House Press Secretary Catherine Jean Birdnest Hairdo Perry said in a statement that the administration fundamentally disagrees with the court's order. She said the law will not only make communities in Texas less safe, it will also burden law enforcement and sow chaos and confusion at our southern border. No, dumbass, you're wrong as always. Texas is asserting broader new authority to tackling illegal immigration, making the novel argument that the U.S. Constitution authorizes the state to defend itself against the influx. Texas points to a constitutional provision that lets states engage in war and take other actions when they are actually invaded And that is what is happening on our southern border. It is an invasion now. As is customary with emergency orders, the court as a whole gave no explanation. But Justices Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh said in a concurring opinion that Supreme Court intervention would have prematurely given the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, has it formally acted on a state application Texas filed there. A trial judge has ruled against the state. The Fifth Circuit instead issued that it called a temporary administrative stay to the district court ruling. The appeals court indicated its temporary order will apply at least until it hears arguments April 3rd. Barrett said the Fifth Circuit could be the first mover on the Texas stay application and presumably can do so promptly. If a decision does not get issued soon, the applicants may return to this court, Barrett wrote, referring to the Biden administration and immigration rights advocates represented by the American Civil Liberties Union. Sotomayor blasted the Fifth Circuit's handling of the case, saying it issued a one-sentence administrative order that is maximally disruptive to foreign relations, national security, and the federal-state balance of power, and the lives of non-citizens. Wrong again, you dumbass. Texas Attorney General Ken Patlin hailed the Supreme Court decision as a huge win. In a post on X, formerly Twitter, social media platform, our immigration law, SB 4, is now in effect, he said. As always, it is my honor to defend Texas and its sovereignty and to lead us to victory in court. The statute, known as SB 4, makes it a state crime to illegally enter or re-enter the U.S. through Texas. The measure lets state judges under undocumented immigrants to leave the country, tasking Texas law enforcement officers with ensuring compliance. The law will mean profoundly alerting the status quo that has existed between the United States and the content of immigration for almost 150 years, Solicitor General Elizabeth Pergolo, the administration's top courtroom lawyer, said in a court filing. Texas officials led by Governor Greg Abbott told the justices the law is needed to deal with an unprecedented border surge. Texas is the nation's first-line defense against transnational violence and has been forced to deal with the deadly consequences of the federal government's inability or unwillingness to protect the border, the state argued in court. And the Supreme Court agreed. Texas said the measure simply mirrors federal immigration law, something it argues the Supreme Court has allowed. The law does not intrude on a recognized exclusive federal field, the state told the Supreme Court. The Biden administration says the federal government has exclusive authority to interpret and enforce the nation's immigration law however they see fit. No, you don't. Texas Attorney General told the justices the Texas measure can't be squared with the 2012 Supreme Court decision that struck down key parts of a similar Arizona law. So, as of today, thanks to the Supreme Court, Texas may go ahead and just take over the fucking border and tell the federal government to go pound sand up their ass. You come across the border, we're arresting you, we're putting you in handcuffs, we're throwing you in a fucking paddy wagon, we're taking you to a damn detention center until we can get enough bus loads to take your ass back across where you came from. End of story, stick a fork in it. Arizona, you need to follow suit. The Second Amendment is once again under attack. This time over recent developments involving cannabis and gun ownership. That's right. If you like to get high, you like to smoke some dope, you might want to pay attention to this. One flashpoint involves a seemingly mundane interaction gone awry. During a routine gun dealer audit, a Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Explosive, ATF investigator, stopped the sale of a handgun to a man named Daniel solely because he allegedly smelled of marijuana. Daniel, according to the Second Amendment Foundation, denied any cannabis use, was willing to take a urinalysis test, blood test, whatever they wanted. He had already passed his background check. Then the ATF itself acknowledged that the smell could have been secondhand smoke or from somebody else in the area, raising questions about the justification of blocking the cell in the first place. Incidents like this, which feed into a broader legal battle, will no doubt come up in discussions at the Cannabis Capital Conference, which takes place April 16th and 17th. Meanwhile, the brain-dead puppets at the Department of Justice have equated marijuana users with being mentally ill and deemed unfit to safely own and operate firearms. This stance contradicts President Biden's recent remarks to end marijuana possession-related incarcerations, as the Department of Justice argues cannabis users are not responsible citizens and therefore lack Second Amendment protections. Couldn't make this shit up if you tried, folks. This contradiction highlights the ongoing debate. Federal law prohibits anyone classified as an unlawful user of a controlled substance, which includes marijuana, even in legalized states, from possessing firearms. The ban faces legal challenges from both marijuana rights groups and Second Amendment advocates. Several states are taking action at the local level. Maryland lawmakers are considering legislation that would safeguard the gun rights of medical marijuana patients under state law. Organizers in Colorado are mobilizing to gather signatures for a ballot initiative that would remove state-level barriers preventing gun owners who legally use medical marijuana from obtaining concealed carry permits. The federal government maintains that marijuana use poses a unique danger, justifying the gun ban. The feds argue it can impair judgment and reaction time, potentially increasing the risk of accidents or misuse of firearms. Let me guess. You dumb nuts think alcohol doesn't? This reason is being tested in courts, obviously, with the question of the ban's constitutionality potentially headed to the Supreme Court. Lawmakers are also getting involved. Representative Brian Mast, co-chair of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, proposed legislation that will protect the Second Amendment rights of marijuana users in states where it's legal. This bill could be attached to a broader marijuana backing bill, which is moving through Congress as I speak. Another bill, co-sponsored by Mast, focuses on allowing medical marijuana patients to buy and possess firearms. So, to those of you out there who have never consumed marijuana, or maybe you've never consumed alcohol, never been drunk, or never been high, let me help you to understand how crazy this bullshit is from the Department of Justice. In my lifetime, I'm 62 next month, I've used both. Yes, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and most of us smoked pot. Also, I've consumed enough alcohol in my lifetime to float a battleship sitting in dry dock. Without a doubt, being under the influence of marijuana is safer than under the influence of alcohol. When you use marijuana, you can only reach one level of high, and that is it. But with alcohol, you can drink until you pass out or drink enough until it kills you. Those things cannot be achieved with marijuana, period. Worst case scenario after consuming pot is you find yourself at Taco Bell ordering one of everything on the menu because you have the munchies. And the last thing I'll say on this subject, there is no known life-threatening medical condition that is a result of using marijuana. But if you drink too much alcohol, you can black out and hurt yourself or others. You can destroy your liver. And you can literally sit down and keep drinking one drink after another. Depending on your physical size, will depend on how many drinks before you literally die. Die of alcohol poisoning. Facts matter, and the Department of Justice is dead wrong. You can sit here and you can smoke one joint after another. You're not going to get any higher than the first one got you. Your liver's not going to die. You're not going to go unconscious. None of the things that alcohol does to you. Alcohol is a fucking poison. All right? And I'm a drinker. Trust me. It is a poison that is destroying lives. Been destroying lives for many, many years. And it continues to this day. And using alcohol the wrong way will kill you. Marijuana doesn't do that. But as usual, too many people in Washington, D.C. are stuck on stupid, and they don't realize what they say. And we'll leave it at that. The decision to own a firearm is complex, influenced by various factors and deep personal beliefs. While gun ownership is a continuous topic in the United States, understanding the reasons behind it can foster productive dialogue. Here are just some ways Americans refuse to give up the rights to own firearms have to say. Number one, personal protection. Many gun owners cite self-defense as a primary reason, believing firearms provide a means to protect themselves and their families from potential threats, especially in areas with high crime rates and limited police presence. Number two, defense against home invasions. The perceived vulnerability within their homes leads some of our own firearms for protection against burglary or violent intruders. Researchers show that 72% of Americans who own guns do so for the protection of themselves and their homes. Defense against dangerous wildlife. In areas with high prevalence of dangerous wildlife encounters like bears or wolves, some individuals view firearms as a last resort of protection. Some argue the presence of a firearm can deter aggressive animal behavior. Oh no, yes it can. And if you're being charged out by a cougar or a bear, and the bear spray don't work, I guarantee you the bullet will. Hunting for food. Hunting provides a sustainable and ethical way to obtain meat for some individuals and communities, contributing to their dietary needs and cultural traditions. In certain situations, regulated hunting can manage wildlife populations, prevent overgrazing, and mitigate ecological damage. Mitigate. Target shooting and recreational activities. Target shooting, skeet shooting, and other shooting sports offer individuals a form of recreation and enjoyment similar to other hobbies. Participating in these activities can help individuals develop marksmanship skills, hand-eye coordination, and discipline while emphasizing safety and responsible firearm handling. Marksmanship skills and self-improvement. Gun owners believe learning and practicing safe gun handling, marksmanship techniques, and responsible firearm ownership can culture vulnerable skills like discipline, focus, and so on. And of course, there's the Second Amendment, right? The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees the right to bear arms. Some view gun ownership as an essential right to protect and exercise. Proponents argue that the Second Amendment guarantees an individual's right to own firearms for self-defense against criminals, intruders, or even oppressed governments. Symbol of freedom and self-reliance. For some, gun ownership represents independence, self-reliance, and the ability to defend oneself without dependence of external authorities. A firearm can be seen as a way to take responsibility for one's safety and security, fostering a sense of self-reliance and empowerment. Passed down through generations, firearms may be seen as a family heirloom, passed down through generations and carrying historical or sentimental value. Some individuals feel obligated to keep inherited firearms out of respect for the wishes of the previous owner or as a way to honor their ancestors. Distrust in government. Many United States residents express a lack of trust in a government institution and believe gun ownership provides a safeguard against potential tyranny of government overreach. Breakdown of social order. Proponents argue that firearms provide a means of self-defense and protection against potential threats during social unrest, looting, or lawlessness. In scenarios where former law enforcement may be overwhelmed or absent, some view firearms as a last resort for maintaining order and protecting their communities. Urban unrest and crime concerns. With approximately 327 people being shot every day in America, individuals living in areas with high crime rates or facing specific threats view firearms as a means of self-defense against that criminal activity. Livestock protection in rural areas. Firearms are sometimes used to protect livestock from predators or threats, depending on the specific predator and the situation. Alternative deterrents like fencing, guard animals, or hazing techniques may only sometimes be sufficient or practical. Firearms collecting. Many people collect firearms of all types, all shapes. Some of them don't even use them at all to shoot. They just like to have them. And last, competitive shooting sports. Competitive shooting offers individuals a form of organized sports and leisure activities, fostering enjoyment, competition, and skill development. Competitive shooting sports can provide opportunities for social interaction and connection with like-minded individuals who share an interest in the sport. So that's just a few things. And the bottom line is, no matter what we use, they aren't going to get it. They're going to, that is, the Democrats in charge in Congress. Thankfully, right now, we have the majority in the House by a very slim margin. But if they ever get back the House and Senate and have a Democrat sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, I believe that would be the time we've reached a point where it'll be very damn scary. Because they can't wrap their pea brains around the fact that it's not the gun that's dangerous. It's the person with the gun that's dangerous. And if they are a criminal, they're not going to follow laws anyhow. So it doesn't matter what you banned. They're going to still commit the crime and kill people with guns, especially in your no gun or gun-free zones, which is where most of these violent attacks take place. I'd like to just say, wake up, but they're not going to. They can't wrap their heads around common damn sense for any purpose. It's not just gun rights. It's anything. Look at our infrastructure, for instance. For 3 years, they talked about all this great work they're doing that Pete Buttigieg is doing. All Pete Buttigieg is good at doing is licking butts of his buddy, his partner, or whatever he wants to call him. Okay, he's not good at doing anything else. And I don't know that he's good at that, okay? But what I'm saying is, why is that son of a bitch in charge of our infrastructure? And what's happening that's fixing anything? Planes or parts are falling off. Trains are derailing. It's a fucking mess here in America. But yet, they let him stay in charge. Why? Well, Because he's gay. Nothing against gay people, but that's the only reason he's there. He wasn't the most qualified person for that job. Neither is that son of a bitch in charge of Health and Human Services or any of these trans people or any of these. There are so many. This administration has broken a record, literally, on putting people in positions based on the color of their skin and their sexual orientation over qualified, educated individuals. And that's what's rotting our country. And that's bullshit. Look, if you're gay or a lesbian or even transsexual for that matter, and you like to dress up in women's clothing, if you have the education and the training and the experience more so than the other people applying for the job, then you get the job as far as I'm concerned. I don't give a shit what you do behind closed doors. But that's not how they look at it, the Democrats. They have a quota that they set for themselves. Well, we're going to put so many people in positions based on skin color and sexual orientation. And that's how you get a country that's turning to shit like this one is. Former United States Central Command Commander General Kenneth McKenzie, who's now retired, argued that the decision to authorize a non-combatant evacuation during the final days of the U.S. war in Afghanistan came too late during testimony, he said in front of the House Foreign Affairs Committee today. McKenzie, who was in command of all U.S. forces in Afghanistan in the war's final days, noted that the military had warned leaders and the Biden administration about the dangers related to a peace of withdrawal, with the former general telling lawmakers that he had expressed such concerns to the State Department over a month before the chaotic evacuation of Kabul airport. A particular concern to McKenzie was that the State Department, which was responsible for coordinating the evacuation of U.S. citizens and some Afghan allies, was behind the pace of the Department of Defense, which is overseeing the withdrawal of U.S. troops and equipment from the country. The faster pace of the military withdrawal from the country could present problems, McKenzie recounted, noting the U.S. would no longer be able to provide security for a State Department evacuation to help prevent a swift Taliban takeover of the country. So if you're going to have two entities doing two separate things, which shouldn't have happened that way, should have had the military in charge of it all of it. Military is in charge of withdrawing, pulling out of there, taking our equipment with us, and also evacuating those that need to be evacuated. Instead, we let the Biden administration, not we, the Biden administration chose to let a bunch of incompetent fools, civilians, be in charge of evacuating the Americans. Yet, if the military is moving on a regular pace like they always do to get shit done, what's going to happen? The civilians are still going to be left with their pants down, trying to do their part. Should have never happened that way. We allowed the State Department to control that part of this evacuation. It's not how it should have happened. Before a single troop was withdrawn from Afghanistan, the first priority should have been the U.S. military forces conduct an operation to remove from Afghanistan all American citizens and everyone who was an ally to America that helped us in that conflict, so that the Taliban doesn't kill them once we're out of there. Once the evacuation's done, Then you start moving the equipment out of there or destroying it, which they said they did, but we now know from whistleblowers and people that testified in front of Congress, they didn't destroy the equipment. We left behind billions of dollars worth of aircraft, helicopters, Black Hawks, guns, rifles, tanks, Jeeps, you name it. Billions of dollars worth of military equipment. And that, by the way, is treason, if you look up the definition. And then the military withdrew all their people. And the State Department was still standing over there, pissing in a fan. And the leaders that be in Washington, D.C., at the White House went, get the fuck out, we're not stopping, and left them there. That's also treason. Look it up. Former commander noted he presented plans on how to better coordinate the operation, but that decision to act on such concerns happened far too late in the withdrawal process. Having a plan is one thing. Preparing the plan, vetting the plan, coordinating the plan with the people that are going to actually carry it out, the Department of Defense, that's another set of tasks completely, McKenzie said. President Biden ordered the start of the non-combatant evacuation from Afghanistan on August 14th, which would ultimately become the largest such operation ever carried out by the U.S. military. About 200,000 people were eventually evacuated from the country with the help of a surge of U.S. forces to the Afghan capital, allowing for security at the airport as flights carried out people desperate to escape looming Taliban rule. Former Joint Chiefs of Staff Chair General Mark Milley agreed with McKenzie, arguing that the decision to authorize this plan was too late, despite the military's best efforts and eventual success to carry out the order. But the success of the mission didn't come without a cost. Most notably, after the August 26th suicide bombing near the gate at the airport that claimed the lives of 182 people and injured over 200 more. Among the dead were 13 U.S. service members, becoming the last of the over 2,000 casualties during America's longest war. Both McKenzie and Milley agreed that more could have been done in an effort to prevent the chaos of August, including the possibility of leaving behind roughly 2,500 troops to help facilitate a more diplomatic end to the conflict. I believe that the Afghan government, the Afghan security forces, would not collapse in August of 21 had we maintained that posture, Milley told lawmakers today. Those were high-end special force capable of defending themselves and conducting operations as they have been for a while. And I think my assessment there was probably moderate to significant risk to U.S. forces, but it was a risk that was worth asking for. And the Biden administration said no. They turned him down. So now we know, according to the four-star generals, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, according to them, and they're treading a line here, so they don't want to come down too hard on Joe because he's senile. He's got dementia or something's going on. He's got special shoes now that he has to wear to help him from falling. He randomly talks about shit that doesn't amount to anything. He goes off subject constantly. Basically, what they said, folks, is that Joe Biden just came to us and said, here's the date, have everybody out of there. And they went, wait a minute, we have to plan for this operation. You're asking us to do something that we can do. We're capable of doing this and doing it right. That's our job. We know how to do this. But we need some time to plan, organize, get it all structured, get it all in place. do things in stages. And the Biden administration said, no, you've got till August to have everybody out of there. Well, when you're telling them that and only giving them a few months window, you get what we ended up with. A total clusterfuck and failure of the commander-in-chief. Court documents are showing an Iraqi national who entered the United States in 2020 on a visitor's visa, plotted to smuggle at least 4 Iraqi nationals across the southern border between the United States and Mexico for the purpose of assassinating former President George W. Bush. I'll repeat that in case you liberals and Democrats didn't catch it that happen to be tuning into the show tonight. Court documents that have been released today are proving that an Iraqi national who entered the United States in 2020 on a visitor visa plotted to smuggle at least 4 Iraqi nationals across the southern border to kill former President George W. Bush. According to the court documents, 53-year-old Shahib Ahmed Shabab and other Iraqi nationals wanted to kill the former president for their belief that Bush was responsible for killing many Iraqis and breaking apart the entire country of Iraq due to the launch of Operation Iraqi Freedom. As a result of the assassination plot, he was charged with attempting to provide material support and resources to terrorists and was sentenced last year to over 14 years in prison. According to court documents obtained by Fox News, Shahib previously supported al-Qaeda as a gun runner during the Iraq War. The Iraqi national reportedly transported weapons from Syria to Iraq and helped smuggle explosives that were used as traps against Americans, mostly IEDs. Court documents released by the United States District Court in Ohio claimed that he first entered the United States on a visitor visa on September of 2020 and worked for various restaurants and markets in Ohio. He filed for asylum claim in March of 2021, which was still pending review prior to his being arrested as a terrorist. Court documents claim that an assassination plot involved 2 former Iraqi intelligence agents who would have been tasked with carrying out the assassination after they gathered intelligence on the former president's home in Texas. He reportedly planned to smuggle at least 4 Iraqi nationals over the border between the United States and Mexico while planning the assassination of the former president. He unwillingly disclosed his plan to an unidentified Federal Bureau of Investigation informant, FBI agent known as CS1. Thank God. Court documents claim that he told the FBI informant that he wanted to be involved in the actual attack and assassination of former President Bush. He added that he would be proud to give his life in the assassination attempt. In 2021, he believed he had smuggled a member of ISIS into the United States for $40,000. However, court documents show that in reality, the individual was made up, and the interaction was coordinated under the direction of the FBI. The court documents note that multiple records meetings were held between the Iraqi national and CS1 from April of 2021 to May of 2022, with CS1 accompanying him. Also conducted surveillance on the former president's home in February of 2022. He later was arrested by FBI Joint Terrorist Task Force in May, according to Fox News. He could face deportation after the completion of his prison sentence. The Iraqi national will also remain under supervised release for the rest of his life. And of course, depending on if we have a Republican and president or Democrat, and there's the president, depends on whether or not he actually will be deported when he gets out of prison. The fact that he's even going to get out of prison is mind-boggling to me. He's a terrorist. He's from Iraq. He came here and thought he was bringing people from Iraq into America that turned out to be FBI people. It was all a setup to go and kill former president of the United States. He's a fucking terrorist. And he's going to get his chance to get out of prison one day. A slap in the face ruling, it's the best way to put it, I guess. U.S. District Judge Sharon Johnson Coleman. I'll repeat her name again just in case some of you would like to send her a nice letter. Be polite. Don't threaten. Don't say anything stupid. It's going to get you arrested. And trust me, if you fuck up, they're going to come after you. They're not playing games. But you can nicely write that you're wrong, Judge, and point out why she's wrong. U.S. District Judge Sharon Johnson Coleman recently ruled, you're not going to believe this, that an illegal immigrant previously charged with carrying a semi-automatic firearm could legally carry guns under the Second Amendment. Yeah. Illegal immigrants have previously been prevented from carrying guns and ammunition under 18 U.S.C. 922. Prosecutors charge Herberto Carbajal Flores, an illegal immigrant, for carrying a semi-automatic pistol in Chicago. Despite knowing he was an alien illegally and unlawfully in the United States, the illegal immigrant's lawyer previously attempted to have the case against Flores dismissed on two separate occasions before their third motion to dismiss the case was accepted by Coleman, this judge, on March 8th. Coleman dismissed the case based on the Supreme Court's 2022 decision in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, Incorporated, versus Bruin, which expanded gun rights and directed lower courts to follow historical context when regards to gun control laws. The non-citizen possession statute, 18 U.S.C. 922, 5, violates the Second Amendment as applied to Flores. Coleman wrote, therefore, the court grants Flores motion to dismiss. Flores has never been convicted of a felony, a violent crime, or a crime involving the use of a weapon. Even in the present case, Flores contends that he received and used handguns solely for self-protection and protection of property during a time of documented civil unrest in the spring of 2022, the judge ordered. Additionally, pretrial services has confirmed that Flores has consistently adhered to fulfill all the stipulated conditions of his release and is gainfully employed. He has no new arrests or outstanding warrants. While the Department of Justice argued that the ban on illegal immigrants carrying weapons was similar to historical bans that prevent British loyalties from owning guns following the establishment of the United States, Coleman ruled that the historical bans excluded exceptions that allowed individuals to carry weapons as they were determined to be non-violent. Coleman explained that since Flores has not displayed dangerous behavior, preventing him from carrying a firearm would go against historical precedents. So this judge, so there's no misunderstanding, this judge completely tosses out the fact that the Second Amendment is in the United States Constitution, and the United States Constitution is for American citizens, not illegal aliens coming across the border illegally. And Judge Flores, I'm sorry, Judge Coleman, he said he didn't commit any crimes, which means that in your mind, if you come across our border illegally, it's not a crime. You're a sitting judge in the United States of America who just took a shit on the Constitution in favor of an illegal alien criminal, because that's what Flores is. Period. There are times, look, shit's getting crazy. I know I'm speaking to the choir when I say this, but we have people in positions of power in the United States that are unqualified to be in the positions. They're uneducated to be in the positions. They have no experience to be in the positions. And in some cases, as I've reported on before, they're illegal aliens in the country illegally, sitting on boards in California, election boards. It's absolutely stunning to me, and I know it is you too, that this continues to be allowed by Democrats. Now, I want to believe, since I used to be a Democrat, I want to believe that the vast majority of Democrats in America do not believe this radical bullshit should be taking place by the Democrats that are in control in certain places, like 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, or the absolute crazy bullshit that the Democrats up in Washington that are congressmen and senators are doing based on the far left-wing ideology that's infiltrated the party. It's destroyed all common sense. And it's as if these Democrat leaders up there are happy with it. I refuse to believe that the average Democrat in America, hardworking person that goes out and goes to work every day and comes home and provides for their family, actually align themselves with these beliefs of far left liberal ideology that's infiltrated that damn party. So wake up. Do your homework and realize what the Democrats in Congress and the Senate are doing to this country and vote them the fuck out, or switch parties, for crying out loud. Because it's going to affect your rights too. You're going to be in the same boat as Republicans and conservatives. And when they take away all our shit, at least some of us stood up for it and went, bullshit. You can't do this. And fought it all the way to the Supreme Court. But sadly, most people on the left are left-leaning. They only get their news from MSNBC or CNN or some far-left liberal person on YouTube or any of the other social media sites like TikTok, for crying out loud. If you get your news from TikTok, Never mind. I'm not going to say what I want to say because I don't need the law enforcement knocking on my door. But look, this shit's scary, folks. What's happening to our country, and yes, I said this the last election, and I said it the election before that. In fact, I probably said it in every election, that this is the most important one. And sadly, it is. Each one was the most important one because we saw the writing on the wall of what would happen if Republicans lost control. At the same time, I'm just as hard on the Republican Party as I am the Democrat Party because we've got people up in Washington, D.C. in the Republican Party. They're a bunch of rhinos, and they don't give a shit about me and you. They could care less. They're up there for their own good. There's a comedian. He's pretty funny. Or should be. He's a comedian. By the name of Lewis Black. And yeah, I don't agree with some of the stuff Lewis Black has put out in the past. But yet he says some things that make so much sense. And one of the things he said was, in one of his comedy specials was, and I'm paraphrasing, it's not exactly word for word how he put it out, but this was the gist of it, was that Democrats get together, huddle together, and come up with a shitty plan for America and put it out there. And Republicans come along and go, I know how to make it shittier. And then the plan is forced on the American people. Basically, two parties that aren't doing anything for me and you. They're not. They just get up there and they're fat, dumb, and happy, doing their own damn thing, being protected, no matter what they say or what they do. Except if you're a Republican, they have to walk a fine line. Others, like Maxine Waters, can call for the violence against a sitting president and his supporters, and nothing happens to them. Her. Anyway, depending on how tomorrow goes with meeting with the surgeon, will depend on when they're going to do the surgery. And I'll let you all know tomorrow. I'll put it in my community section whether or not we will be doing the show Thursday night or not. All depends on what they tell me tomorrow and what their urgency is, if it's something they want to do right away or wait a week, whatever. I just want to get it over with, and I want to feel good, as should all of us. So in the description of this video and all my videos and all my live shows, you can see the other places you can follow me on social media. I hope that you will do that. Follow me there. I'll follow you as well. That's how we spread the word and continue to grow this. Tell your friends and family about the channel. Subscribe to the channel. And whatever network you're watching this channel on, we're going out live on YouTube, live on X, live on LinkedIn, live on Rumble, and I was doing live on Facebook, but I recently stopped that because Facebook decided that my music intro in the beginning of the show goes against their violations of copyright infringement. The music comes directly from StreamYard that I pay for. So I buy the rights to use that music, and they can't figure that shit out. So I just said, fuck it. I just won't. I have the page there, but I'm not gonna deal with that shit anymore. And other than that, folks, I'll put some out tomorrow in the community section is what's going to happen for Thursday. And other than that, please say a prayer for our men and women serving the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders and their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. May God bless the United States of America, and may God bless each and every one of you. Thank you, folks, for being here tonight. Much appreciated. Good night.